It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. We're here with our podcasters. Say hello and introduce yourselves, and then I will introduce our special guest.
I'm Peter Lawrence.
Hey, I'm Chad Jetner.
I'm Kyle Bacher, and joining us today is Jen Deutsch, because we're going to talk about risk. You got a status report. There's a box. It says risks. What goes in there? What do you put in there? She's going to help us sort it out because she's done a lot of project management type stuff, project delivery.
She gets to deal with the consequences of that box rather than just putting stuff in there and being like, I hope somebody cares.
She gets to communicate those risks up the chain.
Yep, I get to explain them to everybody.
Welcome. So my first question is, what constitutes a risk? So talk for an hour and I think we'll just be done. Yeah, it's probably a lot. Kyle's not getting along with Chad. Is that a risk?
No.
Wait, is that true?
That's entertainment.
Kyle, are you really not getting along with me?
I'm getting along with you. I just offered to send you like this $400 recording device.
Well, then why did you use that as an example? That's horrible.
Because it's funny.
Oh, okay.
Because we disagree on stuff once in a while.
The real
I
risk.
give you a hard time.
The real risk.
You're so positive, and I'm not.
Is that Chad is here and he doesn't know that we're going to talk about risk. That's a risk.
As Peter says after he earlier asked what we were talking about.
Exactly. That's right.
I think you're all at risk right now. You're a liability.
It's really my problem because I'm jealous of Chad's comic book collection and his relationship with Grain Belt.
The fact that he uses that so much. Anyway, we're talking about risk. So, like, if I go on vacation, is that a risk?
Generally not. If it's a last minute vacation, then yes. But normally people are planning their vacations ahead of time. So I can kind of, you're going to have a last minute vacation? You're going to
always.
Yep, you're just going to be like, I'm heading to Delta to just grab the next flight.
Not that last minute, but close.
But generally, people plan their vacations out. So we know, okay, when are you going to be gone? How long are you going to be gone? So we can kind of adjust that so that we mitigate that risk a little bit by knowing those things. Becomes a risk when it's grandma just passed away and I need to get on a flight and now I'm, gone. And it's like, well, this wasn't planned for, or you're using time off because you're sick. Those unplanned ones are one that gets scary, especially if you're the person that knows how to do our deploys or the only person that knows how to do our builds. Then it gets really, really scary. So that's, again, kind of leads into a big risk is when you're so specialized in your areas that you don't have anyone else for backup. So if you're the only one that can do something, that's a huge risk, and a risk that runs into a lot of teams where they're like, none of us know how to do this. This person always did it. That's bad.
None of us have access.
Yep. Access is a huge one, especially when you're trying to quick troubleshoot problems for the client or whoever it may be. And all of a sudden you're like, well, none of us can get in there to figure this out. Or, okay, we did figure it out, but none of us can get the solution to the client.
Chad, you're working as a team lead right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
So do risks get reported to you?
Yes. And I report them back and we talk about them. And I was actually just pulling up my last status reports and reading all of the risks that I put in. And these are generic enough that I can talk about them. So risks, none. Risks, none. Okay, so I had to go back a few weeks here. There's a risk here where I actually told my consultant manager, Lindsay, one of the risks was that I found a place in Hawaii that'll rent out a 57 Porsche. I reserved it without checking with my wife first.
That is a risk.
The next one was gonna toss my phone in a Faraday cage next time I have tequila. Not really anything there, but yes, generally speaking, the risks on my side of things are like, hey, if we lose a key stakeholder, right, that is on a
Yeah.
project, huge, like massive risk for guys like me. Like if we switch product owners halfway through, that is a huge risk to the project timelines, to kind of everything. I try to articulate those as best I can and work around them, but that's the kind of stuff that I deal with day to day.
Jen, is there anything that kind of forces risks? Like if you do this, then risks are going to happen. So
Yeah.
what I think of is like really tight deadlines means that any time pressure stuff.
So
could
the
cause a
scary risk one is when timelines are given before a project's really established. So when we go, we're going to switch over and we're now changing our entire database structure. We're going to move over to this one. And we're going to do it in 1 year. Well, none of the people involved in that have made that decision, and to be able to say, here's all the things, there's a ton of risk involved in that. Okay, are we going to end up losing data? Are we going to be able to connect to it? What kind of delay is that going to cause for our clients? Are we going to be somewhere in this middle state? Can we revert it back if something goes wrong? But just upfront being like, we're just going to do this. And a lot of times you don't know risks until you start getting further in. It's just kind of this overarching, and that you don't know what you don't know, which is always the scariest risk, is until you're in that project doing stuff and you're like, oh, now we're getting all these weird errors, or these don't work well together. We can't connect this database to this software that we're using, or whatever it may be. It's all those little things that kind of slowly keep creeping up, and those little things get bigger along the way. It's that whole snowball effect of, okay, well, 1 or 2 off things are fine. And then it's like, okay, but now it's becoming more. And a lot of those things, it's a lot of discovery. It's generally, you're not going to have people on those projects. They're learning just as much as everybody else is. If it's a whole new platform that you're going to use, versus if it's like, okay, we're bringing in an expert, then you get a little bit of help. Someone who can be like, okay, these are things I've seen along the way. Whereas if it's all new people that are going, oh, we've never touched this before, and now we're all trying to learn, that learning curve is painful and a huge risk.
Yeah. There's a lot of gambles you can take.
Yeah.
Is all the functionality we need going to be there? Like I'm not a developer. I've been like a master configurator. So I'm totally dependent on the platform and everything that they say the platform's going to do, it doing. Like, so I've had a situation where there was one key piece of functionality that was, they said it worked and you could do it. And I took that at face value. And I got to a point where like that thing didn't work. And then they discovered that the software manufacturer discovered it was a bug that they would have to fix in their next release.
It's coming
Be?
someday soon.
The future.
Are you saying
So there's things like that can happen that, like, was that avoidable? If I had tested that one thing sooner, then it would have made a difference. But like, I didn't even know I would have to use it until later on.
Yep. It's that you don't know what you don't know. It's that scary factor.
But what I find is if something is tightly time boxed, then you start jettisoning features and functionality, and your minimum viable product becomes the even more minimal viable product.
Yep.
Yeah, because there's only so many moves you can make. But generally, like, other than bumping out the deadline, what are some other things you think can you do early on to mitigate risk.
Or even, Jen, maybe this is there's different classifications, right? Like there's technical risks, there's organizational risks, there's risks to the timeline. Do you have like broad buckets that you kind of just put these things into and address? I mean, because you don't address an organizational risk the same way you address a technical risk, right?
Nope. Yeah. So I've got ones that that I would address with my developers. So I'm gonna talk to them. And a lot of times this is where having senior developers is really handy because they've seen a lot of bad things go horribly wrong. And unfortunately, that's how people learn and get really good at solving those problems when they come up. And a lot of the junior devs just haven't seen things and they can make assumptions that this is just going to work, or, hey, I can just do this. And that just do this is terrifying. And it's those little assumptions that they make, and then they slowly learn, okay, I need to be asking questions along the way, but they don't learn that, out of college. So there's ones I would talk to my developers about going, okay, is this realistic timeline? What kind of, are we going to have problems because we only have one person that knows how to do this? Is this going to be an issue because we just don't have, the operability between, maybe it's this package doesn't work well with what we were planning to do. And we thought, pulling in this package would solve all our problems, and now it doesn't. And so I kind of rely heavily on them and going, okay, on the interwebs, what have you found? All those fun research things. And then because I'm not going to bother them with going, hey, you set this timeline. I try not to bug my developers with that because going, hey, I'm pushing this timeline on you, it's just going to stress them out. And when you're stressed, you're going to write bad code. And I don't want bad code.
Right.
And so I'm going to try to shelter them as much as possible and say, hey, you do the best job you can do. Just keep me updated. Go, okay, I'm running into problems. And again, more senior, they're better at communicating that. It's something you learn. And then up chain, I'm going to communicate more of, okay, here's, we need more funding for, maybe we need more senior devs. Maybe we could use a consultant who comes in and knows the software better. Maybe we need to pull someone in, Microsoft and all those kind of companies, they have people that you can contact. Do we need to purchase support hours? So do we need to do something like that? Do we need to, a lot of times the unfortunate thing is people are like, we'll just throw more people at it. Well, that doesn't always help because more people in the kitchen, well, now it's clouded up and you're trying to have people push code over top of each other and it gets messy quickly. So just kind of, I've found that over commuting up top helps a lot because it's when they don't know what's going on, they tend to be like, oh my gosh, it's hard when they don't understand the tech speak. So translating from what the developer's saying upstream to going, okay, so this is where we're running into problems. We have to pull in this package. And unfortunately, these two just don't speak well together. We're trying to find a solution right now. That could take a couple days, but I'll communicate as soon as we know problems, or as soon as we have a solution. And so just keeping them in the loop. I've found that deadlines are very arbitrary, unless it's something like, okay, this is no longer going to have support and this product is now dead in the water. That's where it gets scary. Then that deadline's a real deadline.
That's just a scary deadline. It's not an official deadline. It's not like the product will go away, right? Yeah. Chad, you were going to say something, right?
I think so.
I scared him away. He's now
yeah, you did. I was terrified of. The deadline thing. I was going to say two things. One, what Jen said about just throwing more developers at a problem is horrible. That could be an entire huge discussion around like how do you right size a team for a project and for a set of whatever your deliverables are. And then the thing that we were just talking about is, what were we just talking about?
I don't know.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Peter.
I don't know either, but I am going to write down the topic.
But I wanted to jump in on the right sizing of the team thing before we got too far away from it, because sometimes product owners or companies or people outside of your control want to help you by adding more people to your team, which sometimes can help and sometimes can totally, practically destroy the whole thing, right?
Well,
I got an intern one summer at a past job, and it was not helpful. They pull time. It made my summer much more difficult.
Yep. Interns are painful because you get to invest into them, but you're not getting a whole lot returned, and you're losing time that you could be doing other things.
Right.
Holy smokes, that's really good. Yeah, you really are though. You're investing a ton of time in there. Like, some of the leadership folks on our project describe it as kind of an hourglass shape, right? Where you have all these leadership folks up the top, you have a dev team at the bottom, and then in the middle you got this funnel of a couple solution architects / tech lead / whatever other
your DBAs, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and really adding people on either end of that doesn't add value to the project at all, right? Because it's always the middle of the hourglass, that little pinch point. Is the part that's hard to get perfect, I think. I mean, not when I'm on the project, but I would imagine other projects.
Chad's projects are always perfect.
So another topic I wanted to bring up is, I know, Chad in particular, you've been working on this project for quite a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard mention perhaps that someone had a misunderstanding about what the deadline was, or what the go live date was, or like somebody had gotten it in their head that it was going to be on this day, and in reality nobody on the team has thought that for a year, right? So is deadlines so far out that they don't get recommunicated? Is that
it's for me, and this is why I'm a little bit more social on my project than on bigger projects like this. I'm a lot more social than if I've got a super tight focus and everything else, because I tell everybody, like, here's what we're working on, here's what we're doing, here's where we are with this, and here's what's left, right? We do a pretty good job of communicating that out. And so, if somebody's got the wrong idea of what a deadline could be, then, that's kind of my fault, but also, I don't know. I don't know the right way to articulate it. I didn't invite the right person to happy hour, I guess.
And the way I was thinking of it was sort of like, okay, we've got this imaginary deadline that's 2 years out, okay? And we're going to do our best to get the product that we've been asked for done in this 2 years, right? And you'll know at the 2-year mark whether you were right or wrong, right? Obviously, you made it or you didn't. And obviously the communication as you go along gets better and better, right? Oh, we know we're not going to get this feature done. It's gone. We talked about getting down to MVP and all of that kind of thing. But just the risk of having such like calendar years out deadlines just makes software developers think that everything is possible. Let's bring it in. Yep, bring that in. Yep, we can do that feature. Yep, add that on. Jen, how do you stop us?
I think also reduces kind of the sense of urgency, and you can have kind of coasting going on, and we're still in the planning phases. So, we're just working on these documents, and we're just doing research, and when you're in that phase, it's harder to show like productivity. It's harder to show your work. So it's like we're not sure if we're going too slow. Like, are we going fast enough? Because that's going to matter at the other end when that deadline's approaching. It's like, man, I wish we would have hustled sooner. And I think that's maybe the benefit of sprints is you hustle sprint by sprint instead of trying to stretch all that out and then having this mystical future date when everything's just going to come together. Yep. And right now it's a feature storm. It's Christmas morning, and we can do anything. Everybody wants everything. We're going to make everybody happy. So how do you keep things going? And what kind of risk is that? Like, that people just aren't moving fast enough. Like, have you had that kind of lag?
Yeah. So I'm going
That's
to
a risk. Yeah.
answer Peter's question. So I've had it both ends where you've had the developers that kind of just, they're like, ooh, this would be really cool. I'm going to throw this in here. And they kind of just keep going off. And you learn very quickly who those people are. And you learn to just kind of pay a little bit more attention and very gently say, that's a really great idea. Let's put it in our backlog. We can reevaluate that, but we can't make those decisions. We have to make, we have to have the product owner needs to be in on these. We've got people we're responsible for. So if we just kind of change things willy-nilly, it could cause us problems. But just
I
saying,
went to the show.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing them going, let's tell other people about this great idea, but let's table that for now. Let's focus on this. And then you've got the other end where you've got product owners that are like, they're trying to get their stakeholders happy. So they're like, oh, can we just sneak this little thing in here quick? It's tiny. It'll take a day. It's just real quick. They never take a day. They're never tiny.
It's totally scoped out, I swear.
Yep. And it always ends up being that you go in there and something else breaks, and then your entire sprint, your entire planning is all thrown off. And so those sneaky, like, oh, just this one off, it sounds so easy, sounds so nice, but it never is. So it's really hard to just be like, oh, that's fine. Just, you have to resist that urge and to try and make everyone happy and say, nope, this is what we agreed to. Let's table that. Let's look at that for our next sprint. That's a great idea. That's where you kind of wear your little bit of the kid gloves and go, that's a great idea. I love that you're thinking outside the box. I love that we're coming up with these new ideas, but we all need to be on board. We can't make one-off decisions because then we're gonna have some hodgepodge product that looks nothing like what our end users really want. And then Kyle, if you want to rephrase your question again.
I figured out how to rephrase it. How do you make sure that you're going at the right pace?
Yeah, because it's definitely one of those things where you start out and you're like, the unknowns, and you're just kind of like, oh, this is cool. Like we could, and then you get these really grandiose ideas of like, well, we could pull in, what if we did this on this platform? Then we could even be bigger. It could be more, it could be faster. We could, oh my gosh. And you get really excited about all these really cool things. And then so you start kind of going, we'll do all these things. And then as it gets closer to the deadline, you're going, oh my gosh, this is real. We didn't actually understand, that the limitations, like you were talking about earlier, those limitations are real. We thought that this could do this and now it's not. And like, are we going to make is there some project that we can pull in from somewhere else or product? Are we going to try to build our own? Like we just blew our timeline out of the water. But just breaking those things down of going, okay, so let's first plan out what platforms are we going to use? Do we have that choice even? What are we going to use? Let's investigate, make sure that, okay, what are the assumptions we're making? That's always the big thing, is get those assumptions down on paper going, we're assuming that this can connect to this. This can store this amount of data. We can query it this way. Do we have those building blocks? You're not going to go and build a house and be like, so I'm planning on what the roof is going to look like and all these other things. I want the siding to look like this, but you have no plans for, okay, the foundation. How are you going to build the walls? Like anything like that. If you don't have any of that down, you're putting chunks on top of nothing.
So that brings up my next question is budget and decisions. Because a lot of the decisions that have to be made are above your pay grade. Like I'm not the one that can make decisions for your organization. These are bigger than me.
Yeah.
Or spend your money. Like I can't just go out and pick these things that are uber expensive. So because I've had it where decisions just aren't getting made.
Yep.
How do you deal with that?
So back pre-COVID era, it would be, you kind of corner people, you kind of trap them into going, okay, we have to make a decision. So it'd be, the big thing is that people get nervous about making decisions because they don't feel like they understand what is the bigger picture. Right. They're going, I don't want, it's like when you buy a car, you're like, is this going to be the right car? Is this going to be the right house? This is a big decision. I want to make sure it's the right one. So giving them all the details going, hey, if we purchase this platform, this is where it's going to help us. We're going to be able to, our deploys are going to be quicker. So this is going to save us this much development time later on because we're not, our developers can do a deploy. We don't need to have someone special that's going to handle that, And so just presenting those facts of where it saves money down the line, I found has helped a lot because a lot of times it's pay now or pay later. So I try to present it going, hey, this is where it's going to benefit us. Let's not take shortcuts now because we all know that, you quick do a patch job. Well, later on, you're going to be like, okay, now we're patching it again and again. And now instead of spending that, 1 week up front with the developer working on it and doing it right, we spent 2 hours 50 times in the past 2 years. Well, that costs us a lot more money. So just presenting all that information so that they feel secure in the decision that they're making. They're not going, okay, I have buyer's remorse now after I said, oh yeah, let's do this. They've got all those things. And then just being available for them. Making it so like, hey, come on over to our meetings. We're going to discuss how things are going so far and just including them. So it's not this like mythical box of a lot of people, development is kind of scary because it's not something that non-developers and people, who are necessary stakeholders, they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They know, I want my product to do this. I want to be able to enter in information and it tell me how to build whatever it may be. Maybe it's some ordering system. I want it to do that. I don't care about the back end, but being able to say, hey, this is how this is going to affect your bottom line helps a lot. So it's just having those conversations and being there for them so that there's not the buyer's remorse and the scariness of, okay, the developers are doing something and they're speaking in some other language and I don't know what's going on and now I'm getting frustrated and I hope everything's okay.
Yeah, you got to have enough information to be comfortable making a decision.
Yep.
So you have to provide that. And then communication. When people don't know and they're not certain and they don't have visibility, then the imaginations kick in.
Yeah.
And and fear, and that's not good either.
Yep.
So in
so
terms of
I was gonna say it's just a lot of building trust. Unfortunately, it's not something that you walk in and you go, I'm gonna solve all of your problems right away. This is gonna be wonderful, rainbow sunshine, whatever.
Yeah.
It's okay. Being honest with them, going, okay, this is what's going wrong, but here's how we can fix that. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I need you to be honest with me. And we're going to celebrate the wins. And we're also going to be like, this sucks for our losses. And we're going to do it together.
Then you have like the other part of my question or comment was around budget. And I think what I've seen is it's common for people that are on the project when budget is getting delayed or not approved to think that they're just being tight. They just don't want to spend the money and sometimes it's, we don't have the money.
Yeah.
And that's a tougher thing because you're not going to ever win that argument because that money is not there.
Yep.
So how do you deal with like, we need to bring on this extra thing because we didn't know there was this deficiency in what we were building, but we can plug this other product in to do this for us, but it's going to cost X.
Yeah. So I've worked at the smaller, tech firms and stuff like that before where you're making things from scratch. Budget is very limited. It's not like, oh, we can just go and pull from our revenue from the last 10 years or whatever it may be. We have excess money laying around. So a lot of times then it's going, okay, so where's our trade-offs is if we put this in there, what can we take away going, okay, this is realistically what we have, and explaining, again, a lot of the stuff is just making people aware of what's being decided. So going, we have this money, unfortunately, if we go over this, that's, impacting people's salary, that's impacting our ability to rent this building or keep the lights on. How do we pay for, our cloud instances, whatever it may be. So going, okay, we have this money. This is, unfortunately, this is boxed. Like there is no fun way of making this. Everybody wishes they win the lottery. magically we have more money. But going, okay, if that's what we need to be successful, where can we, is there other spots that we can cut? Is it, okay, people are going to now pick up and help with deployment, so we're not bottlenecked somewhere and that we have a lot of this lag time where developers are sitting around because we're waiting on the deployment or what it may be. So it's kind of just talking and going, okay, this is where we're at. How do we shift things around? It's the same thing like I said before, building a house. You have a budget. You can't just be like, I need granite countertops. That's great. Where is that money coming from? Are you going to say, okay, well, I don't now need that jacuzzi tub, I guess. I'd rather have granite countertops. I'm going to use those more often. They're going to pay off. More people are going to see them.
Right.
So going with, okay, what's giving me better bang for the buck, I guess.
And then there's a people side to that where, like, we can't bring any more people in, or
help
competing projects and initiatives, where you have, like, you're not the only thing happening at the organization. You're not the only project. And maybe some of the people on your project are part of 3 other projects. And then one of them is on fire. And now you're down a person. I think that can happen.
Oh, yeah.
I've also
played round
seen
robin, the dumpster fires of, okay, this is now broken. Okay, now it's like I've said before, it's like little kids playing soccer. You don't want that to happen. You don't want everyone running after the ball. That's why there's positions. If everyone does their positions right, it looks beautiful. 5-year-olds all gathered together kicking at a ball is kind of chaotic, and it doesn't really end well.
Very true.
For ankles and no goals.
Yeah, I've had some interesting situations where we're pulling the plug on this because we're taking your budget and we're going to do this other thing with it that we had to, we have this other bigger, more important thing. And so I'm sorry, but this is going to have to wait. A lot of that stuff you just have no control over. It's
really don't.
like,
no.
It's hard though when the plug gets pulled. It's hard not to take it personally.
Oh. Well, it's, like code review type of things. You've been working on this. You feel invested. You've put in, most of your free time is spent doing this project. Like you're like, I could have been just sitting on a beach somewhere instead of working my fingers to the bone trying to code this thing, and now you're just taking it away. It gets frustrating. But
Dad's
then it's
thinking about the beach.
I know, where it's warm, not snowing.
That's right. It's mid-February.
Yep, it was snowing earlier. But yeah, so it really is, and so that's where, again, just kind of putting in that trust and being aware that people are human. They're gonna get hurt by some of these things, and so just being like, I know this really sucks, and I'm so sorry. This is what this is what we have to do, and having those unfortunate conversations, but being gentle about it. There's no reason to be mean to somebody and be like, just get over it. We're moving on. You need to move on too. You got to give people a little bit of space to be like, okay, I need to gather my thoughts. I'm shifting gears, and just being like, that doesn't mean it's dead in the water. Maybe that code eventually could be pulled into something else.
Yeah.
So,
it's kind of like when sometimes you get a team member, somebody in the group that is not as experienced. I don't like the word weak. They're not as experienced. They're not as fast.
Yep.
Like they're not gonna have as much output. You can't put as much on them, which means you're putting more on the people around them. And then you're also possibly trying to build that person up. So how do you handle those risks of telling other people they're going to have more work? We're shifting this off of this person's plate onto your plate, or I'm going to pair you up with this person. Because anytime you pair people together, it doesn't always mean they're going to get twice as much done.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I kind of really enjoy is that team building type of stuff. I've been at a lot of places where we take people straight from college and they stay and then they become our senior people. Well, when they come in from college, most of the colleges don't give you database experience. They can say, okay, this is how it looks really cool, but I've never played, SQL instances aren't something that people just have on their desktop that they're playing with, and they have tons of data to learn. You're not writing stored procedures. You might theoretically know how they work, and that's great. But setting it up and setting that culture of just that mentorship of going, hey, you were new ones. Can you help this person out? What are their strengths? Let's say there's somebody that's super fascinated by front end development. That's great. Let's key off of that. I'm not going to take someone who loves front end and hates back end and be like, you're doing back end now, because that's just they're not going to be happy. They're not going to do good work because they don't enjoy it. Sometimes it happens and it sucks, but then you go, okay, hey, this is a one-off. I know this isn't your favorite thing. And again, having those conversations of, this isn't a forever thing. It's just, we need to address this right now, and then we'll get you back to something you enjoy.
It's your turn in the box.
Exactly. Yep. It's your turn to do the bug. Everyone loves writing new code. Everyone hates debugging, but people have to debug sometimes. But just building those things of going, hey, we make them stronger. Think how much collectively as a group we're going to be, and going, okay, we would always have smaller groups, and I always had like a senior person, a newer person, kind of your middle up and coming people. And it was always really important to say, if you want to get to the senior level, you have to mentor people. That's just, it is how it is. That's how it is in the dev world. You can't just, you could want to, some people love just sitting in the corner and coding, but that's not how the product and the teams get better. Devs all start at I have no idea what I'm doing. Look at C#, it sounds really cool. Hello world, but at some point, people are making AI things and all this crazy new tech, and it's changing so quickly. So it's important that we have teams that help each other change. I guess that's my little spiel about, team building and just creating that culture of, we have to all work together. Unfortunately, like, your piece might look great, but if I present the rest of it looks like crap, they're not going to go, oh, Peter did really good. They're going to be like, your team is failing. They're not going to say, right, Peter's code looks great, because they don't see Peter's code. They see the whole end piece. Right. And that's how they're judging it.
That's an interesting way to look at it, Jen, with sort of it's a team effort. It's always a team effort. And even if even if there are certain superstars on a team, if they never pass the ball, share the experience, do any of that, that whole project is going to fail. And there have been times where some people just don't realize that. Like, yep, it's a team effort. You can't solo on this thing. You don't have enough bandwidth to build this entire project by yourself in nights and weekends, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So
brings up my kind of a risk we kind of touched on, but the interpersonal, soft skill, chemistry, like how big a risk when these guys sit next to each other, they get half the work done because they're having way too much fun.
Yep.
Or this person is just going off on their own, doing whatever they want.
Yep.
How much of that do you work on?
That's a big thing that I've dealt with, especially when you get people from college. They're like, this is so exciting. This is my first job. I want to go talk to everybody. And then you also have the developers that are true developers that are like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone in the corner. I don't, I'm an introvert and that's my happy place. Please don't make me do group projects. But it's important to say, okay, for the new people that are super excited, I'm going to chit chat all the time. That's great. I want my teams to feel like, I always would have our scrums kind of start out with, how's life going for you? Is your wife having a baby? How's she doing? How are you prepared? And making them feel connected to one another. If you know each other's lives, it's a lot easier to be like, hey, your son's sick and you're really worried about it, hey, that we're going to pick up some slack for you because we know that your mind just isn't in it right now and you're worried. Or, but then that helps that later on, then they're going to go, that person helped me out and I picked up slack for me. I'm going to come in and help them out now. And just kind of, it creates this little culture of like, when people are chit-chatting, that people are like, yes, that's the time and place. But then if it's somebody who's really distracted, to be like, hey, we need to get this done. Remember, if you feel connected to people, when people are like, hey, we got focus, you're not going to be like, oh, they hate me. They're going to be like, oh yeah, sorry. There's people that are just scatterbrained and need to be like, dude, we need to get this done. And they're like, yep, sorry, ADD brain right now. I just, are going, hey, sometimes people aren't, a lot of times I've found with junior devs that they're not focusing because they don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. So they're like, I'm just going to avoid it. It's not working. I'm scared. I don't want to ask for help and look like I don't know what I'm doing. So just going and going, hey, what are you working on? How's it going? Are you stuck somewhere? Can I help you? Let's talk through it. Let's rubber duck this solution together. And just learning that, hey, I can ask questions and it doesn't mean I'm any less intelligent. Every senior developers clearly have to ask somebody. It's not just, doesn't just overnight. They wake up and they're like, I know everything. My code is amazing. Never any bugs.
It's on the commute. That's where we get all of our answers.
There's just like this halo of light that comes and you're just like, oh.
Yeah. Knowing, people only have so much energy, and kind of having some insight into what's going on outside of work.
Yep.
It's like, I understand how cool it is to build the Lego Death Star, but when you're staying up till 4 a.m. every night, you come in and you're exhausted, and it's kind of affecting your work. So Chad, do those happy hours kind of bring that out? Like what's going on with their personal lives? Is that?
Yeah. So we have, we've had a standing Wednesday happy hour, which is absolutely perfect, right? It's like the exact halfway, well, kind of plus 4 hours, halfway point through the week. And we learn pretty much everything about everybody, right? So, and I have a horrible memory, so I actually take notes. Like, I know anniversaries, I know what's going on with folks, and I know, I don't say it out loud, right? Like, I think maybe Jen kind of addresses it more directly. I'm kind of an indirect. I'm not in project delivery or anything, but I just do, like, I do all our sprint planning. Me and the other, my other friend on the team, we do all the sprint planning, and when I do it, I take all of that input into account when I'm like, oh, okay, here's what we can plan for. Here's what's realistic, and here's where this is going to funnel down. Here's who this is going to funnel down to, based on everything that I learned about what's going on with folks over the last couple of weeks. So yeah, that stuff is huge, like super, super huge. And you have to be, that's why I said early on, like, I try to be a lot more social on my projects, well, at least on this one, than usual, because that's all like super, super good inputs into what you're planning for over the next 2 weeks or month or 6 weeks. And also, like, even more important, it's super important for, like, to mitigate risks around, people's personal lives, right? Like,
life events.
Yeah. I don't get too far into it, but like, I don't probe too deep, but like, I just know, like, oh, if X is happening to this guy, if that happened to me, here's how productive I would be, with this, and here's how much focus I would have throughout the week if that was going on in my life. So yeah, that stuff is huge. And it really, really does help mitigate some of what some of the timeline, some of the, delivery, some of the quality of what happens, for that might come out of a fella having a rough time, or even on the opposite end, a fella that's literally having the time of his life. Like, oh, that guy's having a great time. Here, like, take this.
Let's make it a little bit worse, because he'll still be having a better time than the rest of us.
Well, or if enjoying the work so much that really is super productive. There are times where you're at peak happiness, peak performance. You're coding like a mad person and going crazy, right? Well, here, have a little bit extra because you're enjoying it, and why not? We'll
I tell you
take
what,
it off
though, as a person that was put on a very difficult project, to be sitting next to a coworker that has a project that's going amazingly and they're having a blast. Like, can I move to a different spot?
They're bringing
It's just
me
too hard.
down with their happiness.
It's just, yeah, I'm just jealous. The jealousy's killing me.
Oh, yeah. Personality aspect too of just like
Yeah.
people who are super happy, and then you've got people that are like, I can't handle that. The cheerleaders, I can't do it. So just knowing people's personalities too when building teams and stuff like that is really important, because I always did smaller teams within my big team. And so that was like, okay, here's your mentor, here's your grouping, and knowing those personalities of like, these people are going to bounce off each other great because they'll just sit there and they're going to talk through solutions. They're talker people. These people are like, I'm going to be heads down. And so I'm going to be like, okay, you guys be heads down and only talk when you desperately need to. But yeah, combining those personalities, or like the projects where you're sitting next to somebody who's super happy and you're like, now I just want to throw my phone at you. You're like, no, I'm glad your life's great. Mine sucks right now. This is not going well.
So a lot of those interpersonal moments kind of happen like when you're together in the building. How do you create space for those in a remote world? How do you do that?
You don't.
So
Everybody's sick of virtual happy hours. Nobody wants to do that anymore.
No,
we did it for 2
true.
years.
Yeah.
We're done. We're gonna have a real happy hour. I don't know. That's my you don't is my answer. But Jen, you go ahead.
There's actually a ton of really fun online games that you can do. So we have our bench at SCG where it's people who, are between clients right now. So, doing some team building there. A lot of people have started in the remote world. So we don't have these awesome SCG parties where we all get to know each other and hang out, and it's super cool and ask about everyone's lives and their puppies and, all that good stuff. So, we're doing now every Friday, we're going to start doing code names. You can do it completely online. It's a fun game.
Code names.
I know. See, it's the best. But just things like that where it's fun. It makes people think. You come up with these like, okay, how am I gonna? And just natural conversations happen during those of, okay, we're playing, versus being like, okay, we're gonna have a meeting and we're all just gonna chat to each other. It's like, okay, now I feel pressured to say something interesting about my life of like, I don't know, I've been sitting in the house for 2 years. I haven't left. My pajama bottoms are starting to get a little tight, things like that, where it's make it a little bit more natural. Do some of those games. There's tons of them online where you do the video and then you are playing the game as you do it. It's more fluid of, we're not staring at a screen at each other and be like, hey, say something meaningful.
I really think that like maybe playing a multiplayer online, like, we've got, they gave us 2 hours a week to play World of Warcraft. Let's get a party together and get online and play this game. I mean, I think that would actually maybe do that, because you get a sense of camaraderie and
you get to have the fun banter. You get to, you
Leroy
get
Jenkins.
Yep.
Yeah, we actually do that on mine. Me and another guy have regular meetings in conference room WZ, which is Call of Duty Warzone. So
Nice.
log off here. We play Warzone together, and we can hear each other and talk to each other. But we'll actually talk about, private chat in Warzone. We'll be talking about work while actually playing a game. That's all right. So I go back on what I said earlier. You don't. It's not that we don't. I mean,
Right.
there's one or two things, but we invite folks in. Like if anybody has it, they can hang out with us and play and laugh at how horrible I am.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this
I
is going
think-
horribly wrong. How do I give this? This is, yeah. And it's
I
just
think that every project should begin with game selection.
there we go.
Like, what if you're all remote? Like, okay, what games does everybody like and play? And like that, we're gonna do a couple hours a week to have fun together. Because it's hard just to get on a call and have fun with people, because you always get a couple talkers and then everybody else hides.
Yep.
Huh.
And then you have to, since we're from Minnesota, we all have to be like, okay, is it duck, duck, gray duck or duck, duck, goose? So we can find out what team everyone's on, and
It's gray
Yes,
duck.
It's both. We live in a global world now. It's both.
I bet
Oh,
Chad
man.
thinks
Have to accept
goose.
No, it's gray duck. I mean,
Nice.
it just is. It's not both, Peter.
It's both.
It is gray
It's both.
duck.
I grew
got-
up
You
with
can't
gray
be from
duck.
New York,
and
Peter. This
I
is,
just,
you got to
I'm a
choose that.
consultant. I play both. If everybody's playing duck, duck, goose, I will play duck, duck, goose. I'm not afraid.
Knowing Chad is on the gray duck team makes me like him 5% more than I did 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I feel like we're closer now. We've bonded.
Oh, so your argument's over now? You're not fighting anymore?
No, that's all it took was gray duck.
Okay.
All right, let's wrap it up. Any parting thoughts, Jen? Any nuggets of wisdom you can leave us with before we shut her down?
Any more nuggets? There's
I know,
There's
we got
a lot of
ton.
things so far.
Yeah.
I've talked plenty for everybody. I guess just talk. Like that's the biggest thing is that the communication, it's everything for everything. And just knowing, like, talk through those things of those unknowns. That's, you got to mitigate those unknowns. That's where all risk comes from, not knowing things. So the more you can mitigate those and get a little bit more of boxing them up and going, okay, the more we can, mitigate the risk. You don't, being a firefighter, we're not running into a building without knowing what's going on. They're not going, there's a fire in this warehouse. There could be like fireworks in there, or there could be, mattresses.
It says fireworks and gasoline on the outside. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
I want people to know that Jen used to be a volunteer firefighter, so she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, don't run into a building that's on fire that says fireworks. That's bad. This really won't work out well for you.
Bad plan.
Bad plan.
That's a great note to end on. Until next time, say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye. Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.